This is a Film Stories original podcast.
We made this.
Welcome back everyone to the X-Cast. The truth is in here. This is our special Fight the Future Minute podcast. I'm your host Tony Black and you're listening to our coverage of minute 80 of the X-Files Fight the Future. This minute begins at 1 hour 19 minutes precisely with Dr. Alvin Kurtzweil still walking down the dark alley, and it ends on 1 hour 19 minutes and 59 seconds with Mulder walking through a Washington DC bar. And discussing this interesting minute with me, I'm joined once again by recurring Fight the Future Minute guest and X-Cast patron, Luke Winch.
Yeah, good to be back, Tony.
Yeah, so this is a good one, I think, because it tees up what is a really important section of this film with Mulder and the Well-Manicured Man and getting some really crucial exposition and answers and things like that. So it's a key one. There's not a lot of being said in this, but there's a lot going on, I think, in this minute.
Yeah, there is. I mean, there's a lot of looks, very good face acting going on between Neville and Lando, definitely.
Yeah, 100%, absolutely. And yeah, this is the last time we see poor Martin Landau, legend that he is, as Kurtzweil, who goes the way of many a good informant on the X-Files in this one. So I don't think we've talked Kurtzweil before, it really. So what did you think of the character? You know, what did you make of him throughout this film? Is he a good element to Fight the Future?
Yeah, I really enjoyed his performance through the film. I think really good catch, in the first place to get Martin Landau. He's got a great face, hasn't he? You know, really good expressional face.
He does.
And I think performance-wise, he's really been able to walk the line between like authentic informant and, you know, being a conspiracy nutter. You know, he's got those books that sound, you know, like they're from a screaming madman, but, you know, he obviously knows things, and it takes a while for Mulder to actually start to believe him. So yeah, no, I've really enjoyed his performance throughout the film. He's
passed on now, as has John Neville, but a really great actor, Martin Landau, who he brought a lot of gravitas, like John Neville does as the Well-Manicured Man. He brought a lot of gravitas to this film, I think, and a lot of, you know, I kind of wish he'd been a regular fixture on the show, you know, because it would have been great. Like, in a way, it's great that he's a one shot in this film and that he plays a role which is fairly archetypal, you know, across the X-Files, which is, you know, the doomed informant, but he worked really well with Dubois, I think. Like they had a real chemistry in those roles, I think. So he's one of my favourite informant characters, actually. I mean, he's very different in a way from the rest of them. Like, he's probably the closest analogue is probably Deep Throat, but he's different to Deep Throat as well, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree with the Deep Throat thing. I think, yeah, he's because Deep Throat and Kurtzweil, I don't know, they just had this gentleness about them, which I really liked.
I think, well, and I mean, obviously X is probably my favourite informant because he's just X, you know, and he's just ace. But yeah, gentleness is a good way of putting it, I think. Gentleness and that sort of, I suppose Kurtzweil, because he wasn't really a conspirator in the same vein. It seems to me like he wasn't quite at the level of the Smoking Man and the Well-Manicured Man. You know, he worked with Bill Mulder, as he's talked about earlier, and we talked about on this podcast earlier. But yeah, he doesn't really seem like he's as high up as, like, it's like when the Well-Manicured Man appears, it's almost like Well-Manicured Man knows him, but not the other way around, you know? Or there is a hint in Kurtzweil that he does recognise him from somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting watching both their looks at each other in that moment, and the way I see it, I think Neville definitely plays it that he knows Kurtzweil. Like, he looks at him and goes, Dr. Kurtzweil, I presume. So I think he knows who he is. Whereas Landau's expression it's a bit more ambiguous, and I can't tell whether it's confusion or dread or resignation even. If it is resignation, then he must know who Well-Manicured Man is. It's a difficult read, I think.
I mean, once he goes to leg it and then the car pulls up, you can definitely see, I think, that dread in his eyes and that sort of, I'm buggered here. Like, that's it. It's curtains for me. Which is the last shot you see of him. But I think I took it very much as a kind of, I know your face. When he's looking at Neville, he's looking at Well-Manicured Man, he's like, I know your face. Like, are you... It's almost like that. Are you such and such? He's got a name in his head, or he's got an identity in his head, and he's like, are you that? But he can't quite, work it out. I mean, I've talked before on the podcast about the Well-Manicured Man and how, I'm pretty sure he's some kind of, like, peer in the House of Lords, or he's a fairly high up member of the British government. That's my guess with him. Like, he's somebody, in theory, who might have actually been in the Commons, who might have actually had some role in government somewhere. So maybe he was if you know the right kind of circles, you'd know who he is, possibly. So I'm like, does he recognise? And I love that ambiguity. Are you right? It could be what you've said, 100%. But I love the idea that maybe he does know who he is, but he can't quite get there. He can't quite be sure. It's a great look.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard one to read, but I think it makes sense what you just said, that he knows him in certain circles. And I don't know whether Kurtzweil worked with Bill Mulder, in the State Department, and was a lower tier and didn't kind of talk with the upper echelons, with Cigarette Smoker Man and Well-Manicured Man. It's a difficult one to figure out.
Yeah, because he definitely worked with Bill. And Bill obviously was one of them, wasn't he? Bill, had things gone differently, Bill would have been in those New York meeting rooms now as an old man plotting all this with them, But, yeah, it didn't strike me that he was one of them. It struck me maybe he worked with Bill and Bill trusted him and all this kind of thing, but he was never upper echelon, yeah. So, but yeah, it's interesting. I love how it's all unsaid. It's all to guess about there.
Which is great, because that's what the X-Files is, isn't it? It always likes to leave you a bit uncertain.
Completely, yeah, completely. And it sort of does that good job of establishing the Well-Manicured Man as this sort of urbane, gentlemanly threat. The way he sort of walks out of that door and he's in the back of an alley and he's just got that power radiating from him. It's like Kurtzweil legs it off, but there's no car there at that point. Like, the car just sort of appears out of nowhere. It's almost like the Well-Manicured Man sort of summoned it with his mind. Almost like now for effect, like for sort of almost like for a theatrical, dramatic effect. The Rolls Royce or whatever pulls up. He's just really good. He doesn't even have to say anything.
Yeah, I've loved John Neville's performance throughout the entire series and the film. He's been great.
He's fantastic. Yeah, and he's probably his finest moment. He's coming up very soon in the next few minutes, really. But yeah, again, no longer with us, sadly. But like he's terrific, and it's almost a shame these two don't get a proper scene either, because those two going up against each other it would be great for dramatic purposes. They're two like legendary actors, but. Really, really good moment. Very typically X-Files-y moment. And that's it then. Goodbye, Kurtzweil. Sort of see him again in the next minute, or a hint of him in the next minute, but we'll talk more about that down the road, about what goes on there. But then we're back to Mulder, aren't we? Mulder going back to the bar. So he's nearby. He's only around the corner. But no Glenn Headley this time. Behind the bar. So
this is the same bar that when he was drunk and taking the shots in, isn't it?
I think so. I think it's the bar that... Because he comes back to midway, doesn't he? When Scully's with the OPR and he comes and talks to Kurtzweil in there again in like a booth.
That's right.
So
yeah.
I think it's a couple of scenes where he's in this bar, yeah. But yeah, she's not there now. But yeah, anyway, he's very disoriented, isn't he, here? He's like, doesn't know where he is in a way. Or he does and he doesn't know where he is. He's sort of stumbling round... really sort of, out of it. I thought Duchovny does a good job of this, actually. He does a good job of showing somebody who's exhausted, weakened by the bullet wound, and sort of stumbling around, sort of knowing where he is, sort of not.
Yeah, there's some good some good body effects. They've slapped on a bit of sweat on him. But he looks pretty pale, and the blood's down the side of his head, and everyone's kind of standing up and staring at him as he's walking in.
Which no wonder, really. I mean, having survived a bullet to the head, it's amazing he's up and about, really.
It is really.
He should be in bed.
Yeah.
And then the fact he then goes to the Arctic, I mean, the man's insane.
He's just relentless, isn't he?
Yeah, he's just... I mean, I get why Scully's in danger, but still, it's like, wow. But no, it's good. He does a good job of this. He's sort of going back in, and everyone looking at him as well, like, aware that this isn't normal, what's going on with this guy. But yeah, it's good. It's a good way to end this minute, really, setting up the big encounter and the revelations to come, really. So yeah, it's quite an important minute, this. Quite an important minute of saying sort of goodbye to one character and then establishing the big scenes for another. And, well, the next goodbye to another character. So yeah, we'll continue this and we'll see what happens with the Well-Manicured Man in the next minute. But that's you done, Luke, now, for Fight the Future Minute. I think this is your last one.
It is. I've really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's been brilliant. It's been brilliant to have you come on and talk about this and be one of our guests. So until you return to the XCast, because I'm sure you'll be on the show again at some point down the line, why don't you point people towards where you are and anything that you might be up to, and where they can find you outside of Fight the Future Minute?
You can find me on Twitter at Luke_Winch, WINCH, and I tweet science and I tweet X-Files and geek and movies and all that kind of stuff. You can also find me on Facebook, and I'm in the basement on the X-Files group, and also in the X-Files forum as well.
Fantastic. Great stuff. Yeah, definitely check out Luke's social media, guys. That'd be fantastic. And thanks again, Luke. It's been great to speak to you, and we'll be back soon for our next minute. So, as always, remember, trust no one.
Elsewhere on We Made This. The Movie Palace.
Anyway, I mean, what kind of aspects of his films do you really enjoy? Because obviously we're speaking now, decades after the fact. But, the great thing is many of his films do continue to kind of resonate and stand up tremendously well today. So, yeah, what is it you like about Hitchcock?
Geez, there's so much I like about him.
Yeah.
Where do I start? He's just, I think I was actually having this discussion with my mom the other day because, as I said, she's the only one who ever really wants to watch these films with me. And I said to her, I think what he was particularly great at was showing how small people's lives actually can be, like the minutiae.
We played this.
There is this disability advocate called Sam Bosworth, who is a really avid gamer, who does talk a lot about accessibility of games and about how people shouldn't be shamed for wanting an easy mode, and that shouldn't be a controversial topic in the gaming community. And also how I can't remember what the game was, but there was this, I think it was a PS2 game, was it? I can't remember. It wasn't PS2, it was PS4. But basically you had to use pedals for this driving game, and he can't do that. So they had to basically find a way to alter the game themselves.
Yeah.
The developers didn't think about that.
The time is now. A Millennium Podcast.
Rating has been for this episode, and if not, would you like to hazard a guess?
I gotta admit, Kurt, that I am kind of cheating because I have the page open.
I like that you're only kind of cheating. I like that it's not really cheating. It's
Well, it wasn't intentional cheating, but now that you ask, my guess is it's probably like an 8.9 is my guess.
Yeah, would you guess around 440 people voted?
Yeah, probably around there. Yeah.
I tell you what, you're bang on. It is the best rated episode of Millennium.
Check out all of these shows and more on the We Made This podcast network.